The year is 20 AD. The once mighty Han Dynasty of China has crumbled into dust, leaving behind a power vacuum of epic proportions. This isn't just a dry chapter in a history book. This is a story of heroes turning into villains, of loyalty tested by fire and sword, and of battles so massive they claimed millions of lives. This is the Three Kingdoms era, a period so dramatic and brutal it's said to have inspired sagas like Game of Thrones. Welcome to All Nations History Hub, where today we're diving headfirst into one of the bloodiest and most fascinating periods in human history. Get ready for a saga of ambition, betrayal, and the savage struggle for the soul of a nation. So, how did China go from a unified empire to a chaotic battlefield? It all started with the Yellow Turban Rebellion, a massive peasant uprising that shook the Han Dynasty to its core. The government, too weak to suppress it alone, called upon regional warlords for help. This was a fatal mistake. These warlords, after crushing the rebellion, tasted power and liked it. They refused to disband their armies, instead carving out their own territories. The emperor became a mere puppet, a political pawn in ruthless game. Out of this chaos, three dominant figures emerged, men whose names would echo eternity. First, there was Cao, often portrayed as the villain of the story. He was a brilliant strategist, a cunning politician, and a published poet. He was ruthless, yes, but also incredibly effective. He seized control of the Han Emperor, using the emperor's authority to legitimize his own expansion. He was a master of manipulation, a man who believed the ends always justified the means. He consolidated his power in the north, establishing the foundation of what would become the state of Wei. Then there was Liu Bei, a man who claimed to be a distant relative of the Han royal family. Liu Bei presented himself as the good guy, the virtuous leader to restore the rightful dynasty. He was known for his benevolence and his ability to attract fiercely loyal and talented followers. His journey was one of hardship and perseverance. For years, he was a wanderer, a lord without land, constantly on the run from more powerful rivals. Yet, his reputation for righteousness earned him the unwavering loyalty of two of China's greatest warriors, the Honorable Guan Yu and the fiery Zhang Fei. Together, they formed a brotherhood sworn to live and die together. The final major player was Sun Quan, who inherited a stable and prosperous domain in the south, along the Yangtze River, from his father and older brother. He was a pragmatic and capable leader, skilled at identifying talent and delegating authority, while Cao expanded through brute force and Liu Bei through moral appeal. Sun Quan focused on defending his territory and building a strong, stable state, which would be known as Wu. These three men, Cao, Liu Bei, and Sun Quan, were the titans of their age, and their inevitable collision would drench China in blood. The stage was set for a confrontation of legendary proportions. In 208 AD, Cao, having unified the north, marched his immense army south, numbering in the hundreds of thousands. His goal was simple: crush Liu Bei and Sun Quan, and finally unify all of China under his rule. Liu Bei was on the run, his forces hopelessly outnumbered. His only hope was to convince Sun Quan to join him in a seemingly impossible alliance against Cao's unstoppable juggernaut. This led to the legendary Battle of Red Cliffs. Sun Quan's advisors were split. Many urged him to surrender, believing Cao's army was invincible. But his chief strategist, Zhou Yu, and Liu Bei's brilliant advisor, Zhuge Liang, saw a weakness. Cao's army was composed mostly of northern soldiers, not accustomed to naval warfare or the southern climate. They were exhausted from long march, and sickness was spreading through their ranks. The allies hatched a daring plan. They used deception, sending a forced surrender letter to Cao to lower his guard. Then, under the cover of a favorable wind, they sent a small fleet of ships, filled with flammable materials, sailing towards Cao's massive armada. Thinking it was the surrendering fleet, Cao allowed them to approach. At the last moment, the ships were set ablaze. The fireships crashed into Cao's fleet, which was chained together to help his soldiers with seasickness. The fire spread, turning the river into a sea of flames. Chaos erupted. The Allied forces launched a full-scale assault on the panicked and burning army. Cao's grand invasion was utterly shattered. He barely escaped with his life. The Battle of Red Cliffs is one of the most decisive battles in history. It ensured the survival of Liu Bei and Sun Quan and cemented the division of China into three kingdoms: Cao's way in the north, Liu Bei's Shu in the west, and Sun Quan's Wu in the south. The dream of a quick unification was dead. A long, brutal stalemate had begun. But in an era defined by constant warfare, loyalty was a fragile commodity, and betrayal was a weapon wielded as often as a sword. Alliances were made and broken in the blink of an eye. One of the most tragic examples is the fate of Guan Yu, Liu Bei's sworn brother and one of China's most revered warriors. While Guan Yu was away on a campaign against Wei, Sun Quan, his supposed ally, saw an opportunity. In a shocking backstab, Sun Quan's forces invaded Guan Yu's undefended home province. Cut off and surrounded, the legendary general was captured and executed. This act of betrayal shattered the alliance between Shu and Wu and ignited a burning desire for revenge in Liu Bei. The cycle of vengeance was endless. Blinded by grief and rage over Guan Yu's death, Liu Bei launched a massive, ill-advised invasion of Wu, ignoring the counsel of his wisest advisors. This campaign ended in another devastating defeat for Shu at the Battle of Wailing. Liu Bei, heartbroken and disgraced, retreated and died shortly after. The sworn brotherhood that had once been the heart of his movement was now gone, and the kingdom of Shu, which he had fought so hard to build, was severely weakened, never to fully recover. These weren't isolated incidents. Assassinations, defections, and strategic deceptions were commonplace. Generals would switch sides for a better offer, and families would be torn apart by political ambition. For decades, the three kingdoms were locked in a grueling war of attrition. Generations were born and died knowing nothing but conflict. Countless lives were lost, not just in great battles, but in the constant skirmishes, famines, and plagues that followed in the wake of the armies. The population of China plummeted. It was a dark and savage time, where the grand ambitions of a few cost the lives of millions. So, after all that bloodshed, who finally won? Ironically, none of them. The families of the original three great leaders were all, in time, pushed aside. In the state of Wei, Cao's descendants were eventually overthrown by one of their own powerful clans, the Sima family. Sima Yi, a brilliant but patient strategist who served Wei for years, accumulated power. His sons and grandson continued his work, consolidating their control until his grandson, Sima Yan, finally forced the last Wei emperor to abdicate, establishing a new dynasty, the Jin. With the resources of the most powerful of the three kingdoms now at his command, Sima Yan first conquered the weakened state of Shu. Then he turned his attention to Wu, the last kingdom standing. By 280 AD, the Jin forces overwhelmed Wu, and China was once again unified under a single ruler, ending nearly a century of division and constant war. The Three Kingdoms era was over. The legacy of this period is immense. It has been immortalized in one of China's four great classical novels, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, a historical epic that blends fact with fiction to create a timeless story of heroism, strategy, and betrayal. The characters: the noble Liu Bei, the brilliant Zhuge Liang, the cunning Cao, the mighty Guan Yu have become archetypes in East Asian culture. Their stories have inspired countless operas, TV shows, movies, and, of course, video games, from the Dynasty Warriors series to Total War, Three Kingdoms. The era serves as an endless well of lessons on leadership, strategy, and the tragic human cost of ambition. It's a stark reminder that history is often written in blood, and that the path to power is paved with betrayal and sacrifice. The struggle for a unified China was a savage one, but it created legends that continue to captivate us to this day. So, who do you think was the greatest warrior or strategist of the Three Kingdoms? Cao, Zhuge Liang, Guan Yu? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of history's most epic conflicts, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to All Nations History Hub for more stories from our incredible past. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.